I'm Siddartha Joshi or Sid Joshi. I'm a sustainability solutionist, an inventor in sustainability matrix, and I've been working in this domain for the last 13 years. To me personally, sustainability is a way of how we live our day-to-day lives. It's about ethics, behavior, and the values that it's not just about how you behave at work, but it's also about how you lead your life on a day-to-day basis. So it's more on the human side of it, which also influences or helps me in how I help businesses and corporations in being more sustainable. I think we have been lucky at Olam Agri that our leadership sees sustainability as a strategic lever to how we carry about our business. So as you would see, it's part of our sustainability framework that we want to be climate, nature, and livelihood positive. So sustainability is very central and pivotal to our business. And that's why we have been doing sustainability reporting ever since 2011. Now, what prompted us to maybe improve it was mainly driven around the data being scattered and fragmented, and we wanted to make sure that we bring it together, especially for Olam Agri, since we commenced our sustainability journey since 2021. Yeah, I mean, this definitely to summarize all of this, in a line, I think data, data, data. You cannot lay bricks without clay. So it was, given the complexity and the size or the sheer magnitude of our organization, and with operations across both global south and global north, we had like access to a lot of data, but in terms of how we were collecting that data, how that data was being consolidated and streamlined from a reporting perspective, which before reporting you would have to harmonize it as well. So all of that was a challenge, and not it's not just about seeing reporting as a compliance exercise, but also how do you derive inferences and value from that data, which again is something which we are increasingly looking to do by leveraging platform like yours. As I mentioned, given the sheer magnitude of our operations, wherein we have operations across, more than 50 countries, and in single countries we have multiple offices or factories. For example, our factory footprint in Africa would be, more than 60 factories itself. So then, how do you collect data from so many, stakeholders? So you can do it via Excel, via email, but how do you keep track of it? After a while, everything would seem a puzzle. So and then comes the provenance bit, and how other teams might find comfort in making use of that data. And then we have internal assurance or internal audit team as well. And given the regulations or the emphasis of ESG, and also investors looking for high quality data, it made sense, as we were anyways collecting that data, but to make it more harmonized and provenance ready meant that making use of a platform was a no-brainer. We had been looking for a platform, given that we are not just reporting in accordance with one framework, but with many, and we've been doing it for years. So it meant that we wanted not just ease of data collection, but also how that data can be crosswalked or can be mapped across other relevant frameworks too, so that we do the job once and then we let technology take care of the rest of it. So I think The challenges that we were facing is that we collect one data point, and then we scramble, and we are trying to force fit it across several frameworks, which is not a very efficient use of our team's time. Again, if we can leverage technologies, we are firm believer that if technology can be made use of in any way or form, it does help not just the team but the organization as a whole to be efficient. I think one aspect is definitely saving time, being more efficient with how you are spending your time, the accuracy of the data that would be collected, because you would now have a designated contributor and then someone who would be verifying that, or by vetting the supporting documentation. So there's definitely more credibility for each and every data point that we collect. But our motivation was not just to stop there, but how do you then draw on from the inferences of, let's say, when you are looking at data from 17 different factories, where can you actually improve something? If, let's say, we are looking at programs like our certification programs for our factories, like the ISO. We do have health and safety certifications, food safety certifications. So our is there, let's say, some factory which is doing some state of the art practice which, let's say, other factories can learn from? So these are things which, once you have access to data across each factories, then you can think of running programs, or you can start to make these processes more efficient, rather than some isolated cases of hearing about some good initiatives, but how do you roll it out? How do you scale such initiatives, or scale the learning from those initiatives, which is where I think making use of this data really comes in handy. So I think, to be honest, like, this was one part wherein we were not 100% aware of what can we expect. We always wanted to give ourselves more time, but whenever let's say, company or an organization like ours embarks on such a massive undertaking, there has to be like full commitment and a large amount of time that we allocate. But upon speaking with let's say the WWG team, and also with the other operating group team, that is the F4S team at OFI, we got the comfort that we can actually do this, or embark upon onboarding your platform right before, let's say, our reporting cycle commences, which is around November or December. So we took the bold decision with the conviction that the WWG team had given us, that they would be with us throughout this whole journey. So I wouldn't say that there was a lot of friction associated with onboarding onto a new platform for the very first time, and the whole process was smooth, and we were able to actually do the data collection and reporting in the scheduled time frame. So that was the experience, and I think setting up everything from the get-go definitely takes a while. But if, let's say, you have a dedicated team with commitments associated to how you would go about this process, with some adaptability, I think it is very much doable without parking a lot of time to plan for something sort of a digital transformation of sorts with respect to reporting. So definitely we had spoken with OFI and also one of our other clients, and they have been using the platform, so that helped in sort of reassuring us that we are making the right choice. And also, upon speaking with the team, we could sense, the team had a passion for helping their clients in being more efficient, and making sure that, they want to make it a success, especially when it's done for the very first time, because then the onboarding always involves, setting up things, and things are new. So that support was always there, and the team delivered on to what, was promised to us. So hence we were able to actually report our last year's sustainability report with data that was collected through G17 Eco. Maybe a few examples which comes to my mind immediately. One would be, monitoring the energy efficiency projects, as an example. So how do you track what's the total energy savings associated with running energy saving programs on energy efficiency programs in your factories, and also the associated OPEX savings, because that's also one of, major business matrix which is closely tracked by our teams. So that is one. Then on the social side, it is, there is actually innovation there, wherein we used, or we worked with the WWG team, and we developed a customized module called as the workforce nutrition module, through which we track the nutrition status at our factories, and we came up with sort of rating tiers. So depending on, a few questions, and having access to nutrition, or let's say breastfeeding rooms, and etc., we ranked our factories based on those, and what is the current state of play within those factories. So that really helps us in understanding where we stand, and also, in case, let's say, we identify factories which are not up to the mark, so we give them the right support tools to make sure that they can level up to what is, let's say, our desired rating level. So that is, innovation at play, because this is like built right from scratch. This wasn't part of the platform, and also it showed agility and willingness to actually help us in coming up with something which might not necessarily be, part of any specific reporting framework, but this is like part of a company goal. I mean, very close to us. So that is, let's say, on the social side. Then it is mainly about, keeping a track of year on year trends for, let's say, the material focus areas, the material KPIs, and seeing if we are how we are doing, like it's an increasing or a decreasing trend, and then taking decisions to make sure that we are on the right path or track. So yeah, those are, some of the examples which comes to mind. I would say, from the get go, which is the digital map was quite useful, because especially, more than 60-70 factories, and the supply chain element, and various legal entities. So that if you can put all of this together, in one sort of a sheet, white space, that allows you the flexibility to report, at the last level, which is, let's say, at the factory level, rolling up all the way to the business, to country, to the organization as a whole. So it allows for a lot of flexibility and agility, depending on, let's say, who you want to present the data and the inferences to. Also, there is also the narrative section, wherein someone who is populating the data, and they can provide you with the context of why something might not be looking aligned with last year's number. So you have information right there, and you don't necessarily have to keep asking the same question to the whole team. So it's I think also time efficiency, ease of tracking information at the right level, and all the way up to what you desire and where you need to report that information at. I think I have touched on the examples, and maybe on the collaboration front. The collaboration, I would say, is mainly with the BU sustainability leads and their teams, also the business teams, because each business at the country commodity level have their own priorities, or how they would tailor the overall uh, you know the sustainability framework, and make it context specific, something which is suited to the commodity that they deal in, or let's say they are producing, or value adding to. So uh, and again, like, that data is scattered and not always tracked. So now we have a mechanism through which you can not just collect, but you can see on year basis what's happening, how you are how aligned are you to meeting, let's say, company goal, or how far are you from meeting that goal. So you can actually make resource allocation accordingly, to make that informed call on, let's say, if a program is yielding let's say a benefit which is far more than what was anticipated. They can focus their energies on other aspects of the program through which they can meet company goals. So that's, I think, on the collaboration front, every or most of the BUs have appreciated the rollout of G17, and with as we embark, or we continue on this journey, the adoption rates we are hoping would be increasing going forward. And on the use case, it's the cost saving, the innovation front. So those are the few which comes to mind, and also the streamlining of the overall reporting. So it also benefits us when we have to report all of this information put together, as Olam Agri, towards March or April, and also have to report to SGX for as part of SGX checklist, or GRI, SASB, and various other frameworks that we choose to report to. As I mentioned, sustainability programs are run in mind, keeping the broad sustainability frameworks that or goals that we have. And how we make decisions is, I always like to say that we can always value something more if, let's say, we are putting in the effort to measure something. So if you are putting in the effort to measure, let's say, the outcome of some program, not just the outcome but also the impact of it, and you are seeing it against, let's say, the baseline, which could be your BU, or it could be, let's say, at the country level. So you can take more informed decisions on how you might want to scale those programs, or maybe introduce new programs going forward. And it's not just only at the program levels. With things like percentage of renewable energy that we use as a company, it's actually today stands at around 50%. So that shows that on the overall sustainability front, we are taking this very, very seriously. We are doing justice to our targets as well, which we have set for 2030, not just scope 1 2 but also scope 3. So unless we are putting in rigor to measure the outcome and the impact of any programs that we run across our company, I don't think we would be in a good place to either scale or to introduce new solutions or programs. So it is really central to have a tool which can actually help you. And a tool can only help you if you are making good use of that tool. So you have to like put in the effort initially, but then once things are set, it's like any other process. You just see the compounding of it, and it grows, and then you can keep adding more and more and introduce new future more features once you start to see value. So yeah, once you have decided to embark on something, then just go on and just get it set up, and then you can always keep on adding things as an incremental steps going forward. If I can be a bit more technical and I speak, let's say, the GRI language, or the GRI from a GRI standard, because that has been our anchored standard, especially from an impact reporting perspective. So now we actually have, let's say, an credible baseline. So we have always been reporting in reference to GRI. But today we know, be it the environment, social, and governance pillar, what percentage of, let's say, the GRI standards are we doing justice to, and it has never been our aim to be in accordance, because we want to focus our energies on things which are are material to us. But in terms of those areas which are material to us, are we actually reporting on everything? Because as I mentioned, on that, we have access to a lot of information, but are we credibly capturing and streamlining and harmonizing and reporting it? I would say no, not earlier, or even if it was, there was a lot of force fitting which was going on. So that's definitely a big improvement that we have seen, that we know where we stand today, and where we want to go on from here, from where we are today. Olam Group, Olam Agri is still a part of Olam Group, which is an SGX listed company, and we have been listed since very long. And as I mentioned, that we have been doing GRI reporting since 2011. So we have been compliant all through these years. But so compliance was never, let's say, a main sort of a USP on why, let's say, we embarked on this platform, because we have been compliant even without the platform for very long. But it was more for our own internal use case, on the time efficiency front, on collecting this information in one central location, and then making use of this information, be it decision making on, or let's say, how we run programs, or where we need to scale our investments. So it was mainly that was the focus area, not so much the compliance. But it does, having said that, it does help, because when we prepare indexes, if I just take carbon emission, scope 1 as one KPI, you would have to fit it across maybe 8 or 10, or however many frameworks that we choose to report against, and we do report against a lot of these frameworks. So it does help from an efficiency standpoint, mainly, and for how we would drive some of our programs and initiatives going forward. I mean, initially, when we were onboarding ourselves to the platform, so we ourselves were contemplating whether should we wait out a year before we use this platform entirely to report for our annual reporting. But then, we took the leap of faith, and as we started to work with the team, we felt that we were supported, and the journey, of course, like, there were several new things which came our way, but we were well supported, and the team was also eager and resilient to see through this, which I think is really, really important. The motivation of the team, and how they approach reporting, and initiatives like digital transformation is also pivotal, because with these things, I mean, you can plan for the best, but there'll always be something new which would be a sort of a minor hiccup along the way, and that would mean that you improvise, and you speak with the with let's say WWG in this case, and you identify a speedy solution to it. So it's about being proactive, it's about being adaptive, and it's possible. I think the very fact that we were able to use company tracker for data collection, consolidation, and then harmonizing that data across various frameworks, and then using it for our last year's report, that itself is something which really makes me proud. But not just stopping there, but now making sure that as we continue our journey and we collect, let's say, this year's data, now we would have more insights on what's the trend looking like, as an example, and then opening it up and onboarding other teams as well, so that we can make the most out of companies trackers potential, and also going forward, see how some of the features like AI can help us in further streamlining our work and making us more efficient, and also upcoming regulations, if we can somehow leverage your platform for that, that can also be a bonus, because we have put in the hard work, we have done the hard work, so now it's technology helping us, and propelling us, basically, going forward. I would say that do not look at it with a 1 year sort of a time frame in mind. Think of it from at least 2 to 3 years time frame, and see what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. And if something is happening in the next 2 or 3 years, you better prepare or start preparing for it now, because change management can require time, and also the willingness to embark on something new, especially when it involves a large number of stakeholders. That's a big decision. So the earlier you take that decision, the easier it's going to be, because in 2 3 years time, when let's say you see something coming your way, you would be very well prepared to take up that challenge at that point in time. And it's also not just looking at things in isolation, that you want to prepare for let's say assurance, which is going to get mandatory a few years down the line. But then how do you make use of the rich data that you are collecting, or high quality data, how it might help with building maybe more investor trust, or attracting funding. So there can be various avenues in through which you can think of, let's say, an ROI of what this decision might amount to, which would help you to, let's say, convince your stakeholders in taking that call. Absolutely, yes, and I think we have covered all of it in this interview. So yeah, I think yes, the answer is yes.